This child is 9 years old but has never met his father. In order to fulfill her son's wish to meet his father, the mother anxiously walked into a bar full of men. Although she felt extremely uncomfortable, she still sat down and ordered a drink for herself. But the bar owner said, "I hope you're not working, sweetheart. Don't do deals in here." After hearing that, Lizzie felt her face burning. She finally broke down, hastily fled the bar and made her way to the seaside. Thoughts of her sons, expectations and her unfortunate circumstances flooded her mind. Lizzie could no longer contain the pain within her and burst into tears. Turned out that Liz's ex-husband was a violent man who had made their son deaf when he was very young. To escape her abusive husband, she started moving from place to place with her son, carefully crafting a web of lies. She claimed that his dad worked on a cruise ship and didn't have time to come home. To make Frankie believe this lie, Lizzie would visit the post office every month, writing letters to Frankie in the name of his biological father. In these letters, she would make up some stories to create an image of a good father for her son. When Frankie received the letters, he would write down interesting things from his life and share them with his father on the cruise ship. Each of the letters from his father came with exquisite stamps. Frankie would carefully glue these stamps onto the stamp album his mother had bought him. This thick stamp album was filled with Frankie's longing for his father, and he also marked every place his father had visited on a map in his room. He hoped that one day his father's cruise ship would dock in his city. What puzzled and comforted Lizzie was that despite the deep longing for his father, Frankie never insisted on his father coming to see him. However, as Frankie began to grow older, his grandmother realized that the lie couldn't be sustained for much longer. She urged Lizzie to come clean with her son sooner. But Lizzie still chose to lie. No plans to stop any of it. However, one day Frankie's classmate Ricky came over. He accidentally noticed a strange string of letters on the map in the bedroom. ACCR. What's that supposed to mean? It's the name of his dad's boat. Lizzie had no idea that this unintentional explanation was about to disrupt the lie she had carefully maintained for years. The next day in class, Ricky tossed a piece of newspaper to Frankie. Initially, Frankie thought it was one of Ricky's pranks, but upon opening it, he discovered that the cruise ship where his father worked would be docking in their small town the day after tomorrow. This meant that he would soon see his long-awaited father. However, Frankie did not appear thrilled. Instead, he nervously tucked the newspaper into his pocket. On the way home from school, Ricky stopped him and proposed a bet. If Frankie failed to see his father, he would have to give Ricky his hard-earned stamp collection. But if he succeeded, Ricky would give him a newly bought football card. Reluctantly, Frankie accepted the bet and wrote a letter hoping his father would come to see him and help him win this bet. As expected, this letter ended up in Liz's hands. It was the first time Frankie had expressed a desire to see his father. Lizzie was unsure about how to handle this situation. When they got home, Grandma saw the letter and thought her daughter was once again considering moving to escape. "Lizzie, darling, listen. You got to keep running. You got to face this sometime. Tell Frankie the truth. He should know Lizzie, he should know what his daddy was. But Lizzie still didn't take her advice. So the next day, Lizzie walked into a bar. She was prepared to hire a temporary dad for Frankie. However, misunderstandings from the bar's owner and the playful banter of the men around her made her realize she had chosen the wrong place. In a panic, Lizzie made her way to the seaside. She felt so helpless, gazing at the distant blurry sea. How she wished there could be a cruise ship with the father figure her son had in mind to help him win the bet, and to perfect her lie. Lizzie sat there until dawn, until her friend Marie, who came for a morning walk, discovered her. For many years, it was the first time Lizzie had poured out her heart to someone else. What she didn't expect was that later that afternoon, Marie gave her a phone number, saying that this man could help her fulfill her son's wish. So, Lizzie immediately arranged to meet this man. To her surprise, the man was not only handsome and charming, but also very gracious. However, she felt extremely nervous at their first meeting. After all, it was quite absurd to find a stranger to pretend to be her husband for a day. Lizzie showed the man a stack of letters Frankie had written to his father and Frankie's photos, hoping that he could understand the situation better in advance to avoid any slip-ups. After looking at Frankie's photos and confirming that Frankie had indeed never met his biological father, Gerard agreed without much hesitation. However, when Lizzie brought Gerard home, her mother was very disappointed with Lizzie. "Don't ruin this for him. Please let him have this one day." Her mother sighed, reluctantly accepting her daughter's ridiculous idea. With her mother's approval, Lizzie paid the man half of the fee. At that moment, she had no idea that her life was about to change completely because of the man. To everyone's surprise, when Frankie saw his father, he did not react as expected. The clever Frankie had already seen through his mother's lie. He had long deduced from the clues in his life that his mother had been deceiving him all along. The torn half of the wedding photo said it all. Therefore, understanding as he was, he never demanded to meet his father and obediently followed his mother each time they moved, enduring new rounds of teasing at each new school they went to. Frankie never complained to his mother, despite the constant upheavals. If it weren't for that childish bet, he might never have asked to meet his father. However, what surprised Frankie was that the fake dad in front of him knew him very well and even brought him a book on marine life. Frankie's favorite. "He wants to know how you knew," I read. "Yeah, you'll have to look it. Sorry, but I read it in your letters." After hesitating for a moment, Frankie stepped forward and embraced Gerard tightly, leaving Gerard somewhat unsure of how to respond. Eventually, he slowly placed his hand on Frankie's back. This heartwarming scene also changed Liz's grandmother's opinion of Gerard. Then, Lizzie took out her camera and asked Frankie to record the moment of winning the bet. After all, her money was only enough to rent the man for a day. Frankie brought Gerard to the field and successfully captured Ricky's shocked expression when he saw him standing with his father. Though reluctant, Ricky was willing to admit defeat and handed over all his football cards. Frankie knew it was unfair to win in this way and look towards his father. "Bet you won it fair and square. The world of children is pure and beautiful. Even though they may argue one moment, they can make up and be friends again the next." In the distance, Lizzie also showed a relieved smile. After school, the two went to Marie's restaurant for dinner, but Frankie spent half an hour looking at the menu without deciding what to eat. He was actually showing off the fact that he had his father sitting next to him. And of course, Marie understood his little scheme. After all, she was the one who recommended Gerard to Lizzie. After Gerard ordered the meal, Frankie borrowed a pen and paper from Marie. He wrote on it, "This is my dad. I know Frankie." Meanwhile, Lizzie, who was secretly watching Frankie and Gerard interact from behind the curtain, felt a mix of emotions because the person who used to accompany Frankie was always her. He's not going to take him away from you, Lizzie. Nobody could do that. Seeing the two of them finish their meal and leave, Lizzie immediately became anxious. She hurried to catch up. She saw Gerard taking Frankie to the harbor, which made Lizzie somewhat uneasy. But her worries eased when Gerard stopped by the cruise ship. He was simply enhancing the lie Lizzie had woven, introducing Frankie to the cruise ship mentioned countless times in the letters. Seeing them only taking photos there, Liz's suspended heart finally settled down. In the following time, the two of them stuck together closely. Gerard took on the role of a father admirably, teaching Frankie how to skim stones and helping him find suitable ones. The father was teaching his son how to skip stones and had picked a suitable stone for him. However, the boy Frankie quietly hid the stone in his own pocket. Turned out that since he could remember, he had never seen his father, and that day was the first time he had met him. He saw that stone as a gift from his father, so he didn't want to use it for skipping stones. However, this man was not actually Frankie's biological father. He was just an actor hired by his mother, Lizzie. Frankie's biological father was a very violent man who had made Frankie deaf when he was young. To escape her abusive husband, Lizzie had to keep moving around with her son and mother. In order to prevent her son from feeling disappointed in his father, she lied to him, saying that his father was a sailor who could only work on the ship all year round and couldn't come home. However, Frankie's classmate Ricky seemed to have figured out the truth. He made a bet with Frankie that if Frankie could meet his father, he would give Frankie his collection of soccer cards. But if Frankie couldn't meet his father, then Frankie would have to give Ricky his collection of stamps. Upon learning of this bet between the children, Lizzie didn't want her son to be disappointed. So, she hired Gerard to play the role of Frankie's father. Luckily, Gerard was very professional. Not only did he accompany Frankie to skip stones, but he also took him to the aquarium afterward. Frankie showed his favorite seahorse to his father, and they chatted happily. However, happy times are always short-lived, and soon Gerard took Frankie back home. The time to say goodbye arrived, but Frankie hoped his father would stay with him for one more day. His grandmother, however, refused to agree, so he immediately ran to his mother, holding her hand and begging. Although Lizzie was reluctant, seeing her son's longing for paternal love, she reluctantly agreed to let her son spend one more day with Gerard. After Frankie went inside, she paid Gerard the other half of his fee. That night, Lizzie came across a missing person notice about herself in the newspaper. She found the person who posted it, who turned out to be her ex-husband's sister. He said, Liz's ex-husband was dying and his only wish was to see his son again. But Lizzie unhesitatingly refused this request. After all, how could she forgive the man who had made her son deaf? The next day, Lizzie and Frankie went to the pier where Gerard waved to them from the cruise. Frankie happily waved back and, seeing his mother standing there without any reaction, he held her hands and waved together with her to Gerard. Gerard quietly paid the fee for boarding. When he disembarked, with Lizzie joining them, they now looked like a true family of three. They sat together on a hillside enjoying the scenery, had meals at restaurants, and went for walks on the beach. Lizzie, who initially felt uncomfortable, gradually relaxed. It had been a long time since she had enjoyed life in such a carefree manner. Frankie would even share the snacks he bought with his dad and mom. When the time was right, he left, giving them some alone time. Although it was a bit awkward, a strange emotion began to grow in both of them. In the evening, the three of them attended a party in the town. Marie seemed to sense something and asked Lizzie how she felt about being with Gerard. But Lizzie chose to avoid the question, claiming it was just a deal, and that she didn't feel anything about it, perhaps to reassure herself. Explained to her friend that Gerard would be leaving the next day anyway. Marie, however, had a mysterious smile on her face. Though unable to hear the sounds of laughter around him, Frankie still felt content. His attention was drawn to the girl playing the violin on the stage. Unfortunately, Ricky noticed as well and proposed another bet. He bet that Frankie wouldn't dare to ask the girl on stage to dance, and if he lost, he would have to return the football cards. At first, Frankie didn't want to take this bet, but Gerard told him that if he asked the girl to dance, both he and Lizzie would dance on the dance floor as well. Upon hearing this, Frankie became interested and immediately got up to ask the girl to dance. Gerard, as promised, invited Lizzie to dance as well. However, what Gerard didn't know was that Frankie stopped halfway, turned towards the edge of the dance floor, and watched his parents dancing. He had already achieved his goal. His mom must be happy now, enveloped in the love of a night, enjoying the joy and momentary peace he brought. On the way back home, Gerard was curious about why Frankie's biological father had abandoned them. But to his surprise, Lizzie revealed that it was she who had left her husband. Frankie wasn't born deaf. Was a present from his daddy. Hearing that, Gerard was stunned. It was then that he realized that the woman he had initially thought was a fraud was actually a great mother. I'm his mother, and I lie to him every single day. No, you protect him every single day. After returning home, Gerard hoped to have a private chat with Frankie. This time, Lizzie did not object. As she turned and left, Frankie, who had been pretending to sleep, woke. To Gerard's surprise, Frankie spoke. Music. Frankie, who got the answer, did not cry. Instead, he took out a box from under the bed. Inside was a seahorse model he had carved for a long time. He presented this as a farewell gift to Gerard. Thank you. I can't take this. This is music. Yours. I'd be honored to take it. It's beautiful. Although Gerard did not promise to come back, he assured Frankie that he would take good care of the gift. As the time for departure approached, both Lizzie and Gerard felt a sense of reluctance. After a long silent gaze, Gerard finally leaned in to kiss Lizzie. However, their rationality made them stop. They weren't ready to confront their feelings at that moment. After Gerard left, Lizzie felt a sense of unease. She then discovered something in her pocket. She found it was the payment she had given to Gerard. The next day, she visited her ex-husband at the hospital. He was still as irritable as before and started yelling. When he heard that Lizzie did not want to bring their son here, this only affirmed Liz's decision not to bring their son. Back at home, she found Frankie. "I want to talk to you. It's very important. I got a message today from your dad." "Music." "He's not very well, Frankie. He's very, very sick. But he says he wants you to know. He loves you very much." Frankie felt a bit sad, although he didn't understand why his mother didn't take him to visit his critically ill father. He believed in his mother. So Frankie drew a picture and asked his mother to give it to his father. When Lizzie returned to the hospital, her ex-husband was already on the brink of death. She handed the painting from Frankie to the nurse and attached a photo of Frankie. Although she wasn't sure if her ex-husband would be able to see it, this was the biggest concession she could make. Soon, the news of her ex-husband's passing was published in the newspaper. Even though they no longer had to be forced to move around, Lizzie couldn't seem to find any happiness. One day, she sought out Marie and asked about Gerard's true identity. "Who was he?" "My brother." After learning the truth, Lizzie felt somewhat relieved because it meant they still had a chance to meet again. On her way back home, she opened the last letter that Frankie had written to his father. Inside was a photo of Frankie with Gerard, and the letter described recent events in Frankie's life. He had used the stone his father gave him to skip in the water, and he had put away the map in his bedroom that recorded his father's route. However, what surprised Lizzie was that her son had already discovered that Gerard was not his biological father. "Mad Mara. He's been sick. I think he's been sick for a long time. Man never said anything, but I just knew, and last week he died. I think Ma's very sad inside, but Mary says time's a great healer. And Ma's not to worry anymore 'cause she still got me. Anyway, I've got to go now. My tea's ready. I hope it's not chips. I've had them 3 times this week. Maybe you'll come and see us one more time. Maybe next time your ship talks. Your friend, Frankie." It turned out her son was much stronger than she had thought. Over the years, it wasn't just her protecting her son. He was also protecting her. Now Lizzie finally understood why her mother said her life had already stopped, as if she were merely existing in the process of protecting her son and maintaining the lies. She gradually lost herself, rejecting social interactions and help. Her life revolved entirely around her son and the lies. And at the slightest disturbance, her first thought was to move away and escape. She had lost the courage to face life. Fortunately, family and friends around her pulled her back in time, and mature Frankie brought brightness back to Liz's life. With everyone's help, Lizzie rediscovered her true self, bravely bidding farewell to her past of evasion and prepared to embrace the new life with her son. And the movie ends here. The film Dear Frankie is a rare gem, skillfully combining elements of love and family. Although Gerard changed Liz's life, the film does not portray him as a savior. Instead, it was the love between Lizzie and her son Frankie that helped her emerge from the shadows and embrace a new life. The ending of the film does not reveal whether Gerard returns to the mother and son, but through Marie's words, it leaves the audience with hope. Such handling is deeply impressive. Feel free to share your thoughts on this film in the comments. See you in the next movie.